It is 7 o'clock, and we're going to call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Publics Meeting Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and/or the Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, and has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mrs. DeLuna? Here. Mr. Lure?
Here.
Mrs. Langston? Here. Mr. Cass?
Here.
Mr. Napoloni?
Here.
Mr. Capello?
Here. We're going to be moving into executive session, so we'll hold the Pledge of Allegiance in abeyance. Mr. Lure, would you care to move us into executive session for negotiation, legal, and personnel?
All three?
All three.
I would like to move that we convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8
of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss negotiations, legal, and personnel issues. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we are in executive session at 7:01 p.m. All right, welcome back. We are back out of executive session, and we held off on the Pledge of Allegiance, which we will do now. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we can move to the superintendent's comments. Sure. And are there? Oh, I'm sorry. We have the budget discussion. Is there a presentation there?
There's no presentation, just a
a
handout, and there's a budget
Okay,
discussion.
Just a discussion. Okay, so we'll.
We already presented this exact thing. It's just a couple minor changes, and that's that.
Yeah.
Good.
Does anyone have any questions or?
Can we reiterate the fact that, in spite of the fact that the budget is actually going up, the impact to the average household is actually going down?
Our impact is going down,
Yeah.
which is important.
Yes.
Well, we can only affect us,
Denville
yeah.
K-8, we only ever speak for the Denville K-8.
I wrote that too. If you look at the bottom here, reminder: this budget represents a tax impact only for Denville K-8 DOE. Town, county, and MHRD budgets are separate.
Thank you, got that?
Wanna
But
stress
not only
that.
the average homeowner, but every homeowner really gets, from our budget, a lower reduction in
Burden and the impact.
Absolutely.
Your thing is on just
Yeah, so you're paying more, you save more. Interesting, right? It's always the other way around.
Of yesteryear, and they were so drawn out and complicated and overburdened with information that didn't seem to make the valid. Years in a row, we have.
But not only that, I think that the important thing is the fact that we're also adding significant instruction program, technology, money put back into funding teachers and,
The math coach.
This is so much in this budget that we're able to get out of it for having a reduction in tax impact for the average homeowner is just incredible, so. But kudos to Damaris and Steve and Sandy for all their work on getting everything in that is going to be the best impact for the district. It's a tremendous amount of work, and I know I really appreciate it. Help us out a lot to go through the hundreds and hundreds of line items to scrutinize it, but appreciate it.
And I think the other thing that bears mentioning again is that obviously we're kind of standing on the shoulders of previous boards. I mean, we're withdrawing money from our capital reserve to do the work that, again, this is budget neutral, that, this is money that was built up over the course of many years that we're now able to use. I mean, it's exactly what it was purposed for, but we have access to it, so.
And we're also building on previous boards by using the bank cap that they didn't use,
Yep.
that we
Right.
can now use, and it's a great circumstance of everything going on in the town that we're having a tax reduction at the K-8 level while doing so much. And I agree, thank you for all the hard work on this.
I'm happy with it. We're gonna get a lot done.
Budget.
It's amazing.
I can't believe we're doing
We're doing-
$3.8 million worth of projects this year
Yeah.
without a referendum.
Exactly.
And where I get my numbers from, you have 1.8 in ESIP, you got another 0.8 in stuff in the budget, and then you have your 1.2 coming out of capital reserves, which we feel pretty strongly we'll be able to replace some of that. Meaning that we feel very strongly that we'll have $1 million in reserves,
Combined between maintenance
Both
reserve
reserves.
and capital reserve.
meaning after the project's done, we feel like there's a very, very strong likelihood that we'll have $1 million left in cap reserve or maintenance reserve after the project's done, barring any major thing that happens. We know about.
That's excellent. Okay. Now we'll go to superintendent's comments.
Okay, superintendent's comments. So we are going to do some work on the Valley View fields for practice so that the fields are in a little better condition than they were last year. We're not going to spend a ton of money on it, but we're just going to make sure that it's raked up and there's some clay spread around and there's not big divots and ruts in it so that the kids can practice on it. We won't be using Valley View for our interscholastic athletics. We will be going to Field 3 and Field 4 at Gardner. There's an important dyslexia meeting tomorrow night at Riverview, sponsored by Special Services Department. It's a workshop. It's at Riverview tomorrow night. I'm going to try to attend myself. There will be an email going out this Friday to all families regarding the changes in the calendar. Has also been in the Friday folder the last 2 weeks and posted on the website. We will keep it in the Friday folder and also do a separate email to remind everybody that schools will be closed on March 28th, barring the use of 2 snow days before that.
Can you make sure that the tab for the calendar is updated too? I mean, you gotta go through with news and click on calendar, news, calendar update to find the particular dates. But I think the tab, when you click on the calendar tab, it has the old approved calendar rather than the
Yeah, I put something on it that says, we'll do something, I'll figure it out. I have one other comment too. I was able to make arrangements with the YMCA, who will provide daycare for anybody who needs daycare on the 5 days that we're now closed, including the last 3 in June. If anybody's interested in that, I did put that in the letter so everybody knows they can use that. I believe it'll be at the Y. They're deciding on how many people come, but it won't be in one of our schools. It would be off-site somewhere. That's my report.
I had a question on the Valley View. The field, spruce it up a little bit. I know every spring the boys' baseball team's out there spreading clay and dragging it and, shaping up to the best of their abilities. Obviously, nothing's ever done to the grass itself. Are we gonna have, like our maintenance people do it, or some outside people come in?
Our maintenance people were going to do it.
They're gonna do it, and we're gonna get some clay shipped in?
Yeah, we have some clay, and I told them to if they need more clay, get clay. They wanted to buy a new, I'm not sure of the name of the thing, but it's the thing that they use to drag the field. I guess it digs in, and ours is 30 years old, so it's like, well, just get another one. So we're gonna get a new one, and it'll dig into the clay a little bit more, so it won't be like a rock. And then they're gonna make sure that it's done a few times a week, groomed. It's not gonna be perfect, because we don't use it for games, but it'll be better than it was last year.
Are they gonna get rid of I haven't looked at the fields in a while, but the lip on the edge of the infield softball, the clay and the sand gets underneath there, and over time,
It grows. Right?
it grows, so you need to get it, really cut back to where it's flat.
They're gonna try to make it better.
Okay, good.
They also replaced a pretty big section of the softball cage because it was broken and somebody got hurt, so we fixed it. I told them to make sure it's fixed before somebody gets hurt now. So they're walking around and making sure that there's no other repairs needed to the fence or the batting cage or any of the things that are out there.
Great.
Okay. before we move on to Assistant Superintendent's comments, just one quick thing to tag on something Steve said. The CPAC presentation tomorrow night's about dyslexia, and I heard today they have already 80 people who've RSVP'd. It looks like it's going to be a good presentation. It's well attended.
Just one change in our park dates on April 28th. It's Take Your Children to Work Day, so we will not be testing on that day, which just bumps, we were not testing on that Friday, but now we will be testing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday of that week. And the only real impact is that sixth grade won't start on the 29th. They won't start until Monday, the 2nd, and run till the 9th. That change has been made already on the website and on the Friday folders. This concludes the Assistant Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Business Administrator's comments?
We had a we had a pre-bid meeting last Thursday, and it went really well. We had at least 5 contractors showing up approximately, and the engineer as well. The engineer was able to take them to different sites to show them the project, and the opening of the bid will be on March 31st. And that will complete my report.
Thank you very much.
And our consultant and our architect were happy with the contracts that came. Happy with the level of ability and customer service and things like that.
Very good. Okay, at this time, 7:43, I will open for public comments. If anyone has any comments, anything germane to the district, they can come up to the podiums over there and just sign in. Any takers? Seeing none, I'll close for public comment also at 7:44. And we'll move to old business. Mr. Napoloni, would you care to move us through the items we'll be voting on at our next meeting?
Sure. At our next meeting, we'll be voting on some reports, some minutes from 2 meetings, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you very much. Nicely done.
It's years of practice to get this.
All right, moving on to new business.
A question about the nurses report.
Sure.
Can you talk about it now or next week, or sorry, next week, next time?
Either
We
one.
can-
Work session
is-
format is sort of the talking
Yeah,
one.
so we can talk now.
I was reading it last night, and it appears that Lakeview has a lot more visits to the nurse on a per-student basis than Riverview, and significantly more than Valley View. Valley View has roughly 1 visit per student. Riverview has about 0.7 visits per student, and Lakeview has like 1.3 visits per student. And I'm wondering what's going on there. That seems very, very odd. Is there?
Sure. At that building, we have more medically fragile students. So some of those students see the nurse 2 and 3 times a day for treatments. So it just pushes the number way up.
Thank you.
We had, I raised questions about the overall business of the nurse's office a couple of times, and before you're coming on the board, the nurses came in, some of us in the audience, but they did a very good presentation about some of the new reporting structure, their activities that they do during the day, because when I looked at the numbers, divided it by the number of nurses or the number of working hours in a week, it was like, going to the subway in New York City in the morning. It was like, does it ever stop, So they gave a good overview of what goes on, during the day in terms of some of the mandatory medication for some of the kids that has to be administered, as well as kids coming in for because they're not feeling good. And they also track, some of the kids just go down there to get out of class. So, after the presentation, and we had some questions back and forth, I thought things were under control in terms of, what was going on in the nurse's office. I think they do a good job. And we questioned too about the staffing, if they were adequately staffed to take care of everything, especially a lot of the mandatory reporting that's increased over the years.
Yeah, that was a really helpful presentation. That might be a good use of YouTube, actually, if you want to go back and watch that one.
I emailed you the report. Remember the?
Yeah, I read the report.
I read the report, but it didn't explain what I was wondering about. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was actually on the other side of the table for about half of that presentation and then had to leave, so I didn't get the whole thing. But do we have any idea roughly what date it was?
Whatever meeting it was at the beginning of
The date, when I sent you that email, it had the date of the
Oh,
meeting.
okay. Thank you. I will check that out.
All right, if there's nothing else, we will move on to new business. And if there are no objections, I would like to move on items under personnel, 1 through 3 as a block.
I'll second that.
Okay, wait, I wasn't done. Sorry. You also have an addendum for number 1. We are adding what should be R and S to the items under personnel number 1.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns, comments? I would just like to say that it's, bittersweet to see 2 more teachers at Riverview putting retirement in. I know that both these teachers have been at Riverview for quite a long time, so they will be missed. Anyone else? If not, I'll call for the roll call.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna? Yes. Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Napoloni?
Yes.
Mr. Capella?
Yes. All right, moving on to instruction and program, Mrs. Lindsay?
Okay, but also for vote this evening, if no one has any objections, I would like to move item 1, A through C.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Napoloni. We did, in our committee meeting, discuss, and I wrote up in the minutes about A in specific. So for everyone reading the agenda, we like to pre-approve all the teachers that have applied to the Teachers College, which is an exceptional program in New York City, because when they find out if they've been accepted into the program to the time when the district has to cut the check for them going, is not enough time to actually hit a board meeting. So we pre-approve it. We don't know if all of these people will actually get accepted into the program, but if they happen to, or whoever happens to, this gives the district the ability to pay for it.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? If none, we'll take roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna? Yes. Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes?
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Napoloni?
Yes.
Mr. Capella?
Yes. And Mrs. DeLuna, would you care to move us through finance?
Sure. There are 4 items, including the budget. Do you want to move them as a block, or?
Okay.
I'd like to move items 1 through 4 on the agenda as a block.
Thank you, Mr. Napolone.
I'll second that.
Let's do it.
Thank you again, Mr. Napolone.
Mine is associated with time.
Obviously, the budget's on here. Anybody have any questions, concerns, things they would like to say?
I think we mentioned it about the budget. I think it's a great value to the taxpayer's dollar in regards to what Mike was talking about, how much we get in terms of added resources to the district, the amount of capital improvements we're doing to the district, to the great initiatives, exciting initiatives that are being added to the district, all for what is going to be a negative impact to the tax. Negative in the sense that their individual impact, tax impact will be less than it had been before. I think that's ridiculously good. Mariana mentioned the work of the bank cap and all the stars being aligned to make this happen. I think it's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody from the public to listen to Mr. Forte's presentation from the last meeting. I think it hit on a lot of the key initiatives between the one-to-one devices, these Chromebooks that we're looking to kind of bring in for the 6th graders next year, and the math coach and this room right here being totally transformed into a much more modern facility. So a lot of really great initiatives, and I appreciate everybody putting it together, Mr. Forte and Damaris and Sandy. So thank you. I think it's great.
Anyone else?
I have a question about number 2. Is this the amendment to the IDEA grant with the following amounts? Is this new money that we didn't know we were getting? Is it money we always thought we were getting? Is it not money we're getting at all?
No, this is the amendment to the original application to the IDEA. We have carryover monies. When you have carryover money from the previous year that was not spent, we had to do an amendment return, because the original application was done in May of the previous year, and after the fiscal year is closed and you have carryover monies, then you have to do an amendment return, usually around this time of the year when they open up the application.
So we're giving this money back? I'm still not clear what this money
Now,
is.
sometimes a lot of the non-public institutions do not spend 100% of their funds.
Right.
And therefore, we had to carry them over, and usually we receive 15% of that money back to the district.
Okay, so, but we spent our basic public and our preschool, it's just the non-public?
It's non-public,
Okay.
but it's all combined, so therefore we have.
Right, I know, it's all one grant, so then when we, okay.
And so our portion did change based on the allocation, on the allocation.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve pointed out, which actually definitely bears mentioning, is number 1, we're accepting a donation from a parent for $400 of equipment. Looks like it's going to Riverview, photography equipment, phone speakers, and so on. It's going to be used for our enrichment and computer classes. Obviously, we appreciate that and thank them very much. That's tremendous.
That is,
Selfie sticks.
Selfie sticks. We could maybe do without the selfie sticks, but the rest would be all right.
You need selfie sticks.
you probably suggest having it.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll take roll call on this.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Luna?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Napoloni?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay, on to new business. These are items we will be voting on at our next meeting. Under personnel, items 1 and 2, which is some family leave provisions and substitute, hiring substitute pending their CHR approval. So we'll be voting on that at our next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Lindsay, you care to take us through the new instruction and program?
At the next meeting, I'll be asking you to approve the field trip requests, to approve the 3-year comprehensive equity plan, and to approve the weeding log of 939 titles from this library that we're sitting in right now as we move forward with our grand renovation of the library, and I reserve the right to maybe ask you to vote on other things too.
Thank you.
I know I've asked this before, and I unfortunately did not make a note of it and can't remember. What's the procedure for the books that get removed?
So what we're going to do this year, this is a pretty big project because we're weeding down somewhere around 40% of the total collection. And what we're going to do is every time something's approved, we'll put out a message to the public with dates and times where they can come and look through the things that are going to be discarded, and they can come and take what they want from that collection. Then after that, they'll be discarded. It's too many books and titles to put in a box somewhere and store them. It's just, you're talking about thousands of books now that we have to, that have just not been discarded. And, you know, we have World Book encyclopedias and things like that over there from 10, 15 years ago.
So that's how it's
Make a table.
939 titles, but well over 1,000 books? 'Cause it's-
This is the reference collection, this is what she's talking about now.
Yes, there's
First
more to
wave.
come.
Oh, this is just the first wave,
Yeah,
this
that's
939
right.
titles.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. There's some very interesting stuff in there, too.
I think the 10 to 15-year-old references in generous. That's
Well, yeah, but I was looking at this list, it's not all world books.
We also have VHS tapes over there. So we want to try to modernize it a bit.
Some of them are duplicate copies
Yeah.
that haven't been checked out in a long time, so just keeping one copy and getting rid of 2 or 3 of that, like if they have 4 copies of something.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on instruction program? If not, Mr. Anderson, would you care to take us through what we'll be talking about on policy for our next meeting?
Sure, at the next meeting, myself or someone else will walk through a couple policies. First reading for employment of school, business administrator, board secretary, that Steve sent over the red lines on and some changes in accordance with some state ethics commission recent findings, correct, Steve?
Correct.
And first reading also on the harassment, intimidation, bullying, and then second reading and adoption for 3. Pupil use of privately owned technology that we've spoken about a few times, assignment of pupils, and transgender students. I think those 3 we've talked about quite a bit in the last couple meetings. Any questions?
I have a question. So what committee talked about the 2 new ones?
What committee talked about the 2 new ones? No committee. This
Okay.
came through the full board.
Not having the personnel.
No, it's the first time we've seen anything about the business administrator and the HIB. It's a first reading. The whole board, we talked about it. This is the first time I saw this red line.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
a lot.
that's why I'm bringing it through the full board.
Okay,
right
and
now.
so you're saying all this recommended language change in both of them is coming from,
On
I forget who our policy,
Strauss Esme
This is coming through the state.
On March
would actually be.
4th, I gave you a document that
all right, I'll go back and
it
look.
has, so I put on here current policy, and then I put, the next thing was the ruling from the SEC dated January 26th. And then what happens is Strauss Esme, when a new ruling comes, they send us a synopsis of that ruling.
So you sent that all to us on March 4th?
Yeah, and then I sent.
I'll have to look for it because I don't remember seeing
Matt
any of that.
Jacoby also, I'm in the March 4th one right now. Matt Jacoby sent a letter to us with his interpretation of the
I'm
findings.
not going to read it now.
And then at the end, it has the red line, new wording that needs to be in there due to the
All right, so
recent change.
with our packet this time, I just saw the red line one, and I must not have seen the March 4th one.
So it all comes from an SEC, a State Ethics Commission ruling on the 28th of, I guess, the 28th of January.
The only thing that leapt out at me here, and I wasn't sure I necessarily saw it in the language, was the part that talks about, the Board of Education may, through an interview committee established with the approval of the superintendent, participate in a final interview. That part I don't get. I'm not necessarily sure why the superintendent would approve us creating a committee.
I have no idea, but I didn't see
So-
this paperwork.
It does come right out of
Here's word for
That is in
word,
there?
yeah. Prior to the recommendations, board members have no role in selecting candidates for positions other than that of superintendent. For boards choosing to have a personnel committee, the committee must be established and function with the approval of the superintendent. Boards of education and individual board members must always understand that the superintendent's authority to recommend hires to the board. A personnel committee cannot supersede or usurp that authority. This is from the SEC.
Well, that's always been the case. That's not a new ruling. I mean, we can never hire anyone who's not approved and put on an agenda by the superintendent.
Well, the
So I don't-
current policy says, that's why this is in conflict. The current policy actually says that.
Well, it just says that we have the right to interview, which,
This talks
No, it
specifically
doesn't.
about the interviewing
It
process.
doesn't say that. It says,
It gets pretty
the
detailed.
Board of Education will interview the candidates. Doesn't say can, it says will.
Okay,
The Board of Education will appoint a suitable person who holds the appropriate certificate as prescribed by the State Board of Education. Final selection shall be made by the board, which shall also fix the compensation, blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's in conflict with the new ruling. The board votes on all personnel.
right, the board
But
always,
But the board does not select candidates, except for the superintendent.
Either we agree with the superintendent's recommendation.
I see, and that's what the difference
Or we
is.
don't.
Right, but we don't, I mean, in order for us to form a committee to
That's the-
interview, that seems odd that
That's
we
the
need
part
approval
that I
for
guess
that,
maybe I'm-
considering,
I think there's a difference between the committee they're talking about and this is like, it's like an interview group, not really a committee. I mean, it specifically says in here that, board forms personnel, no more than 1 or 2 board members may participate, which is not normal for a typical committee.
yeah.
And their role would be
Be
limited.
limited. The board members may not conduct the interview, but may offer observations and assessments. It says right at the beginning, School Ethics Commission does not, and they highlight that in bold. However, support board members conducting interviews for positions below that of superintendent. I mean, it's very specific in here what they're looking, what the Ethics
Okay, so-
Committee wrote it out as, so.
Well, we know how great
So-
their recommendations are,
So Steve,
and how long they last.
this went through Strauss first, and then went through this, and then went through Matt, so it's been through several hands, is
Well,
that?
what happened was, Matt represents other districts too. Another district, local district, had a concern with this ruling because it comes from Strauss. We get like an excerpt of the rulings. I didn't include that because I gave you the actual ruling. I didn't want to give you 2 things, it would have been confusing. So, Matt took the ruling and wrote a memo to that board. He shared that memo with me. So, because we talked about it and said the same thing. Because in our circles, I saw an email coming around about this exact thing, saying, this just came out, what's everybody doing about it? So Matt said to the people that he works with, because he works with other boards, and he sent me this. That's why, that's where the genesis of it came from the Strauss Esme excerpt.
It may be worthwhile, in Mariana's point, I mean, because there's a lot going on here between Strauss Esme and Matt and, the School Ethics Committee to go through personnel. I mean, is that worthwhile? I don't know if anybody has any, I would support that if we think, I mean, there's a lot of moving
Personnel.
parts here. It's not just a pretty straightforward thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking it through
No,
personnel.
and I think I understand what you're saying, and I will go back. I am sorry that I missed it in all of our updates, the whole genesis of it. But it seems odd that we may, through an interview committee established with approval of the superintendent, it seems odd that we would need, like, if we said to you, we'd like to establish an interview committee, that you could say no.
That's the part that.
That's the part that
yeah.
seems odd to me.
Yeah, that's the part that leapt out to me, so,
Yeah. I mean, if the board decides we want to form an interview committee to interview your final recommendation, or not interview, listen in on your interview of your final candidate, it seems odd that there's yet one more layer that says you could say no. Not you, but a superintendent, since this is a ruling by the SEC.
But,
You know what I mean? Why go to the,
but then we always have the right to say
No.
no to whoever is brought forward as the recommendation. It's kind of a convoluted.
Sure.
I think I understand your point, right, and I think Mike is right in the sense that I think it gives the opportunity for each to have a check and balance. So you don't want us to interview the person in advance, all right, well, we're not gonna go first, or vice versa. I think that it also keeps intact a certain level of responsibility or accountability to the superintendent and then to the board. The superintendent is responsible for those who are below that, and the board is responsible for the superintendent in this position. So I guess I understand why both would be there. I think this does give an easy out when there's a significant conflict between the superintendent and the board, to allow for a, this is my recommendation, go yes or no, kind of scenario. I guess we've been fortunate to have a better relationship with the board to be consultative about it rather than not.
Well, I think that's the point, is that a lot of these rulings are typically made for the extreme situation, where boards are interviewing like teachers, literally, I'm sure. So I think that it's taken an extreme situation and probably doesn't fit exactly into what we do and how we function as a board. But that being said, the 7 of us and 10 of us, I guess, that are all sitting up here may not be here at some point, and we should make sure that the policy is appropriate for no matter who's sitting in each one of these seats.
So generally speaking, do we feel like we'd like to put this through personnel? Do we feel comfortable enough to move at the next meeting?
I don't mind bringing it through, it's okay, but
What do y'all think?
There's enough ambiguity. I think I would prefer to run it through personnel. I mean, this isn't something that we need to have in force right now.
Well, first reading, we're not even voting tonight, we will be voting on first reading at the next meeting, and it doesn't
And
become a
then-
policy till the second meeting in April.
So we have time
When you
to
have the
make-
second
we have
reading. You
time
have
to-
time
we have
to
plenty
put
of
it in
time
there
anyway. Yeah.
before you even,
Before it's.
yeah, so that's fine. The only other thing I would say when whoever looks at the HIB one, I'm confused by the red line on it, and I didn't print it out. We say when it's adopted, and you say when it's revised, and like with this policy, the one that I actually have, the school business administrator secretary one, we put a new revised line, and that one you're crossing out our last revision date and changing it to whatever the new revision date is. Why wouldn't you just leave the whole list of revision dates? Why do
that
you?
could just be, we made a mistake.
Okay, well, that's,
These are, this,
and I mean, it seems to me that the HIB one is also trying to add in a layer of the ability for people to think and not just,
yeah, so
Be
let me
forced.
tell you the genesis of this. So, this particular, remember when we were talking about how, when I was reporting to the board, we were doing 40 investigations
Right.
and having 5.
that seemed very specific to
Right.
us. You mean, so other districts were having the same thing?
Right, they
I know
were,
you
yeah.
brought in our lawyer to retrain our people.
Exactly. And then what happened was our lawyer did the training. And then I was at another workshop where the legal team said, no matter what your lawyer says, you better check your policy to make sure it's not conflicting. So it was conflicting, and Matt did these revisions on here to give us.
Okay,
the
so that one
ability
is
to make
specific
these.
to us, nobody else
This
has.
is, yes, but this may become the model because everybody's going through that. So we
Right.
shared this with Strauss and some other districts too, so they.
Yeah, when I read it, it seemed like it fit exactly what
Yep.
our training had said. Okay.
And the
Strauss,
good
give
thing
us-
is, if you look at it, it's like, we're like 10 investigations for HIB. So we're doing a little better now. We're basically, we're ruling out the whole, this kid called me a poo-poo head kind of thing. Like, that's what we're trying to not do a 25-page
Not spend all those hours
investigation.
doing an investigation. Okay.
Mike,
Can Strauss give us a discount now that we're giving them recommendations?
yeah, sure.
Well, that goes both ways. I mean, this is an open,
We'll
this
charge
is an
them.
open source.
Send a bill that way.
I have a question about the pupil use of privately owned technology policy. This revamping is in preparation of the BYOD thing that we're still thinking about doing in May or June, correct?
May is the
May.
pilot.
Yeah, but the whole point of revamping this is specifically to set it up for that.
In other words, we didn't want to go and do something that would be contradictory to our policy, so we had to make the
I
changes to the
understand.
policy.
We are planning on tracking usage, correct?
Yes.
Okay, then I would like to suggest that we change the wording in the policy from management software may allow for tracking to management software will allow for tracking. I mean, we're going to do it. I think there's I'm not sure that ambiguity there serves any purpose. And it may not mean anything, but if we're going to do it, and I can't imagine that we're not, it should say that we are in fact doing it.
Well, even adding the word will allow doesn't mean you're doing it. It means you can do it.
True?
If you say you are going to, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that because I can't 100% be sure we
Well-
are going to.
Well, in the future, you never know too,
Right.
what you want to
Exactly.
do.
Well, and not all
Well,
the time.
and I don't know, but the way you read it, it sounded like we have software that allows for tracking. Doesn't say you're using the software that allows for tracking, so. But I don't have no problem with changing it to, if we do own software that allows for tracking already, then we can say that.
But my point is, may allow and will allow don't Both don't mean that you're going to do it. So if you're trying to say that you're going to do it, you need to change the wording to say that. I wouldn't be comfortable with saying we're definitely doing it because I'm not 100% sure what exactly we're going to track. Like, for example, we're going to buy some software that tracks and searches for kids doing things on the internet that may be harmful to themselves or others. Meaning, like if a student is using one of our devices to search on how to make a bomb, or how to kill yourself, or something like that. Those kinds of red flags will come to us, and it'll be in a sign-off sheet on the acceptable use policy that they have to sign.
As I understand it, we're planning on tracking usage to determine if they're using the devices for educational purposes, not just for danger to self and others, or stuff that you're not supposed to be looking at in school.
I mean, like tracking how many times somebody logged on and
How many and what they were looking at, like if they were logging on to check their email, if they were logging on to download the teaching materials. It seems to me that there is a difference between may allow and will allow as far as the software we're going to be setting this up so the software is installed on their devices, right? No, the software isn't going to be installed on their devices?
It's a policy on our network, meaning if you have a registered device, you'll be able to log on. If you log on, we'll be able to track what you're doing.
Nothing's gonna get downloaded on someone's device.
Says the guy from the technology committee.
Oh, that part.
It's kind of like if anybody uses our stuff, there's a filter. There's a filter on it.
No right to privacy.
Right, exactly.
They can't go through our Wi-Fi.
I don't mind changing the word to will, I'm just trying to gather what
I
you're trying
understand
to
what
say.
you're saying, but I think he just feels like it's,
I guess the other question too is that, what we're talking about tracking is for the pilot. So if this policy is not just for the pilot, but potentially in the future, if we decide to do anything
well,
else, so.
from what Mr. Forte just said, it could possibly track, anytime we have kids on
Yeah.
devices, we should be tracking if they are looking up ways to hurt themselves or create bombs, and so that wouldn't just be for the pilot, in my mind.
Yeah. Either way, I don't think it changes how, software may allow for tracking or will allow. I don't think it changes really how I look at it, but,
If everybody wants to change the word to will, I'm fine with it, I was just really trying to gather what you guys meant out of the will and may. To me, it's, either way, it's fine. Either way is fine.
I'm fine with will.
I was gonna say, I understand what you're saying, but,
Right.
so I might as well change it to will.
So that's, accepting,
2363.
use of the network, right?
Yep, 236.
Use of, what was the number?
2360.
Change may to will track. Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No problem.
Anyone else on these items? Okay. If not, Mrs. DeLuna, would you care to
Wait,
walk?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
wait, just to make sure, because there's a two reading, are you saying you want to remove this from the agenda, or do you want to go with the reading, the first reading at the end of the month, make any changes before the second reading, so that this thing will be in place within 2 months? Or do you want to hold off the second?
Which one are you talking about?
The one that we just,
The one that we
The
just.
per pupil next meeting will be voting to
1310.
adopt. Are you saying you want to change that?
no, that one I got, it's 1310 I'm
The
talking about.
interviewing.
Oh.
No, I said
Why,
that,
yeah, why would we?
no,
Just add it to
keep it on
personnel
its,
for
April.
yeah.
Oh, before we move on, and I forgot about something about, or maybe I should wait if you guys want. The next committee meetings fall during the break. We want to move them to the second Tuesday of the month. And I put that in my report, just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And our next board meeting will be on a closed school day, which is okay. It's just, we're not going to change the board meeting for that.
Maybe we'll have a better turnout.
Yeah.
So you're moving committee meetings to April 12th, is that what you're saying?
I don't think so, is it?
That's
Is it
the
April
second
12th?
Tuesday
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
all right,
month.
then that's the second Tuesday.
First day of work.
But you're not in those committees, right? Do you know?
Yes. Which one? Yeah,
No, you meet on Tuesday night?
We don't know how
Well,
we're going to.
we don't know,
We'll
actually.
figure it
Oh,
out.
We
because
don't know.
you're the one with the conflict on Tuesday night, because that's the Valley View
Yeah,
PTA
no.
meeting night.
Actually, well, she is a tax accountant. so that meeting's canceled.
Oh, that's right, it was
So
canceled last year,
that's not a
too.
problem, yeah.
Okay. So it should probably get pulled off the district calendar if it's
Yeah,
canceled.
they made the, I'll get to that when I talk about the Valley View PTA stuff.
Yeah, well, remind me to, okay, calendar.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. So we left off with moving on to finance with Mrs. DeLuna.
At our next meeting, we moved 3 items. The donation of a wheelchair to Children's Therapy Center. The contract with Lakeland Hills Y for before and after care. And the overhead projector and AV equipment disposed of at the library collection. Within all 3 schools with itemized tag numbers on the tax list. Do we know how we plan on disposing of them?
Are these things that go up
We'll
for
have somebody
sale?
take them if we can. If not, we bring them to the town. There's a dumpster down there.
These aren't things we try and sell?
If we can, I mean, these are pretty,
Well, no, I asked the last time and I never heard what happened with those ones.
we found somebody to take them for nothing.
Okay.
We couldn't sell them. We tried 5 different vendors, nobody would take them.
Okay, because I said at the last time too that there is,
A guy would take them for nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we got somebody local who would take them. So we didn't have to take them down to the town, basically.
no, that's great. Well, I know because the place that I had mentioned last time recycles it and all the parts just
Yeah.
don't end up in the landfill.
That's
They-
what this other guy did.
Okay.
Came and took 'em all.
Any questions about the lease on the Y?
That represents a $2,500 a year increase.
Is that, so what's the reasoning for the 2-year? Was there any particular
He
reason? or
just
you
wants to
wanna
lock us
it
in for 2 years, yeah.
So that was, they requested
We have an
that.
out, though, yeah.
But they asked,
They would like it.
they'd like to
Sure.
know what they're doing for 2 years.
There's an out in there, though, if for some reason you want to break the lease, both sides can do it.
60 days.
60 days notice. And that lease does, even though there's a $2,500 increase, it does have the language still that says that they cannot raise the fee during the, so that's a good thing on us. That means they can't raise it for 2
Yeah.
years either.
Yeah, sure.
They're giving us more money and they're
Mhm.
guaranteeing that it's not going to raise. But they
60
did
days.
increase how many people, too.
That seems like a short
Short.
out. I mean, if they came to us tomorrow and said, we're out in 60 days, we'd be in a bad spot.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
It would never happen, but yeah, I know.
Right.
I know.
Well,
Dave Napoloni would be in trouble. I'd be dropping my kids off at his house.
but I mean, they're facing a bit of a challenge, I guess. I mean, I know Mountain Lakes has told them that they're not going to use them again next year for their aftercare. So I'm sure they'd be happy to lock us in. Okay, anything else? Okay, if not, doesn't look like we have anything in buildings and grounds and transportation, so we can move
Well,
to.
according to this, we're not going to be talking about anything next
No?
month. I just will mention that I sent out the report of our last committee meeting, which was really not building and grounds per se. It was kind of a blending of the finance and building and grounds. You got the budget there. You see all the projects that were done. One thing Dino called to my attention was I mentioned that the ESA projects were listed on tab 15, page 2. And that was a test to see if everybody looked there. And they weren't there. So I know we saw it, and it might have been a different tab, but we had a box there somewhere of all the ESIP projects that we're doing. So, I mean, they are there. And like Mike said before, we're getting a tremendous amount of major projects done with this budget cycle, which is really great. It's going to make a big difference
I think we'll.
in the schools. But the regular project, the brick and mortar projects are all listed there on tab 15.
So,
We did have the work at Lakeview done, and it's been verified that it's completed properly by our architect and consultant for the warranty work at Lakeview, which would have been that's why we were able to pull 200,000 off out of the budget for that.
Is it a roof or?
This is the
Yeah.
roof
Still a
warranty.
warranty.
So, no, it's okay. So, I don't know if anybody else feels the same way. I'm still a little bit fuzzy on exactly what we're doing as far as the ESIP projects go. That's why I went and looked at that tab. Does everybody kind of have an understanding of what we're going to be accomplishing in ESIP kind of precisely? Because I'm not sure I know.
So in committee when we spoke about it, we were told it's all lighting, exterior and interior, 3 rooftop heating units at Riverview, the HVAC to the Riverview Nurse's Office to fix the problem that was caused when we cleaned out all of the insulation that was asbestos laden for the hot something that runs underneath there, the furnace. We're going to finish the last third of the controls at Lakeview, which we had covered without ESIP, the first 2/3 of it. That's what I wrote down. What else is it covering?
That's, I mean, you're talking
East.
insulation district-wide, anywhere that needs it. Like, for example, in many areas in our buildings, the place where the roof and the ceiling meet, I mean, the roof and the wall meet, there's spaces. Those will be filled. There's some door sweeps and window sweeps that need to be, like window weather stripping. So it's basically insulation, HVAC, lighting, and in HVAC is rooftop units, which are, some of our heating and air conditioning come through rooftop units, some come through boilers. Depends, it's all different all around, there's not really a rhyme or reason to it. And then it also includes the lighting.
Oh, yeah, I did have insulation written down.
I shared this with you guys, this is pretty easy to read, and it tells you pretty much the scope of work.
So Steve, in that Q&A that you had sent over, I think last week, it mentioned something about solar panels, which that was threw me for a loop because I didn't think we had talked about any solar panels. Or at
Solar
least-
panels are not in, though. There were things that were investigated. The thing about ESIP, the interesting thing about ESIP is, it is about the environment, but it's only about the environment if you save money. Does that make sense? It's not about the environment for environment's sake. It's about, if you do this, you will save this money. So after they did all their, their engineering, which was pretty extensive, it's like a $70,000 audit, they determined that we don't really have the space to make enough electricity for it to be worthwhile on a roof that is young enough to be able to hold it, right? It would be kind of weird to put a big, huge solar panel system on a roof and then have to replace the roof a couple years later. So all that said, after the fact, it really didn't pay. And that was one of the reasons why I chose Honeywell, because why I recommended Honeywell to you, was because the other one did have some environmental things like cogeneration that really wouldn't have paid for itself, and it would have cost us a lot of money down the road to replace it because they have a 5-year lifespan. So I didn't want to get involved in something that I know in 5 years is going to cost us $50,000 to replace, and it's not really saving us any money anyway. It's just there because it looks nice because we're doing some renewable energy. We just don't have the size project to do renewable energy, according to our expert and Honeywell. We just don't have the size project. Some huge things they can do it, and building the carports costs a lot of money to actually build the carport. In a district like ours, we would have to put it on the roof because the cost to build whatever structure you're going to hold it would take away any savings you're going to make on the actual
You don't have any big parking lots, so it's not
like say you did at Lakeview. Can you imagine putting the carports all over Lakeview? It would look horrible, and then it would cost a fortune too to build all those carports. So it's really, I talked to him about it, and it really comes down to that. I'll give you an example of how this thing has to work, right? I talked to him about room sensors, meaning like the lights would go on and off when there's a room sensor. They said that we can't even fit that into it because with the LED lighting, it uses so little electricity, it won't pay for the actual switch. So it has to pay for itself. There's no, it's not just about,
But I thought we had room sensing switches.
in some places. We don't have them all over though.
I thought that was one of the things we did, that we installed them district-wide back there when we made that.
They're definitely not here.
Well, yeah, definitely not here, you're right.
So that's-
Remember when that was a district goal? Yeah, but we made it a district goal to do a whole big energy savings, whatever. We were always told we couldn't do solar because our roofs weren't new enough and,
Right, and they're never going to be new enough.
Well, there's also.
well, and now we have new roofs, but it's still not,
Yeah, it's not-
But if we
Things
do,
change,
it's
too.
hard too if you do roof projects in pieces.
Well, that's,
right.
Because you can be like, well, let's put a solar panel here and,
Right, well, at the time when we investigated it, we were looking
Yeah.
towards
Right.
the complete Riverview, which we then did that way.
and like you said, you need the scale, you need a size, you need
But
a total size.
They just did all this engineering, and it still wasn't worthwhile, so I feel better about that. I always felt like if only we had had a new roof. we could have grabbed this, but even now, it doesn't matter.
Well, even so, he just said there's just not enough roof space in our district to make any money on solar, because it costs a lot of money to
Put
install.
a dome over the Riverview field and put some solar panels on that.
Exactly.
Oh, a dome, that's what we want.
Turkeys, I could try.
Oh, yeah, let's trap all those fumes in the dome.
Okay, so are we off to, are we to go to the cause? I believe we are. Any committee reports? Liaison reports, anything anybody like to talk about?
Yeah, I do. I sent an email, I forgot the name of the company, about, in the financial industry, where they have these programs now that do the analytics on market movements due to geopolitical events. And these computers can these programs can analyze the results in just a matter of minutes, where it used to take these super educated analysts, weeks to do. And as a result, some, you foresee jobs being eliminated. And these are real high-paying jobs on Wall Street. We're talking $250,000 jobs that could possibly be eliminated. So I was thinking about, I know we have the after-school STEM program. We've also introduced STEM into our curriculum. Are we doing anything in terms of, like we talked about, computer engineering and also computer repair? And besides just, I know we're teaching the kids how to program, some of the rudiments of programming, but all the other things that go along with technology and computers, because that probably is going to be a good vocation right now, but also in the future too. Computer repair, and installing computers and installing the infrastructure. So I don't know, perhaps, elementary school.
That was a good curricular question.
Yeah.
You gotta keep it.
We don't
You gotta keep it simple, obviously, for the kids,
Sure.
but I think some early instruction might get them interested as a vocation to pursue in high school and college. I think it'd be, it's fascinating. The computers aren't gonna go away. There's a lot of jobs that are just vanishing very quickly from the landscape due to technology and robotics. There's certain things that will go away.
We currently do not have it in our STEM program or in the middle school because those programs, it's a cycle that's just 36 days. But I do know that the high school has a program. I'm not sure exactly where that we would fit that in, but I can investigate to see, speak with
Yeah, I think you gotta
technology
keep it,
and see where
pretty
that might fit in.
simple. And I guess obviously where you would fit it in there. But I just think some of the basics, it might, get certain students, interested in doing something with that as a future vocation.
I agree with what Dr. Cullis said. We do prepare the students to be able to go off to Morris Knolls and take advantage of their programs. And we also do prepare our kids if they choose to apply to the Morris County School of Technology that does have 2 different programs specifically geared around that. Computer Information Systems, which is the one my son goes to, which is why I'm familiar with it, and the other one, which I'm not as familiar with, which is also more design related, so.
Maybe it's something we don't need to do.
Well, I mean, we obviously get them fired up enough that kids are willing to commit in their 8th grade year that they want to go off to those academies, because we definitely have kids over there.
Yeah, the other thing I think has been diminished, just from what I see on the news and what I read, is just vocational training. I don't think you're going to see plumbing, the need for plumbers to disappear.
Yeah, that'll never disappear.
I think that's not going to be it. And those are good paying jobs. Electricians, real
Yep.
good trade job, a lot of education you need for that. So, kids that don't have aren't interested in, they're more working with their hands than, being, mathematical engineer, that type of thing. I make sure we keep those students engaged too, so they can go on and have rewarding careers.
We do cover circuitry in 3 grades. So they do some opportunities to do light, sound, heat, circuitry.
And electricians. I was saying, and I know our county VOTEC does both plumbing and electrical. My nephew came out of the county VOTEC. Yeah, it does carpentry. So, and I'm pretty sure the local other counties also have programs, so yeah. I agree, but to make kids aware that if, you don't think college is the right fit, those schools exist
I think.
and the training is invaluable.
Not to diminish those of us that have college degrees, okay? There's so much emphasis on college and also getting a master's degree. I mean, a lot of kids aren't interested in that, and you can have a great career, good paying job in some of the trades.
Yeah, and those
So
jobs will never be
I just think
offshore.
that you can keep those kids interested in finishing school and going on with their trades.
Agree. Anyone else?
I can do liaison reports if you want, although Mr. Forte and Mr. Capella stole part of my thunder. I did meet with the executive CPAC board this week, and we do have a public meeting tomorrow night, like you both mentioned, 7 PM. It was an RSVP thing. Our numbers are up to 80 now. They were, and it is 7 PM at Riverview School around dyslexia, as you said. I also did the liaison to the Lakeview PTA last week, and I guess their thing that the meeting mainly was about was their big fundraising event, the biggest one that they hold all year is the Tricky Trade that's coming up on April 29th. But something you mentioned before about the Valley View PTA meeting being moved reminded me that I wondered, how do things come off the district calendar when they get canceled? Like, the PTA meeting's still there, is that the building thing? The foundation at Denville, I know it got canceled, but it's still on our district calendar. So like, I didn't know until somebody mentioned it, because it was on my calendar, because it's on the district calendar. So what's the
Something
process?
like that, which whoever started it should undo it, which they probably don't sometimes. Meaning, when the foundation of Denville canceled theirs, they told us when it was, so it got put on there, but then they didn't tell us it was undone to that particular person. So it's just a matter of, I guess, getting the information to the right people to take it off. I'm not sure how that would work, so we always catch everything. But, like, I was aware of it, but I didn't think to take it off the calendar.
Right.
Or to ask somebody to. So,
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, how do we get it so it gets more,
no, I would like to have it.
how do we
so
close that loop?
Whoever puts in for it should say, I'm undoing it.
Well, the whole thing, and also when I was at the CPAC meeting, I mentioned to them, well, you know that your event is on the district calendar for the wrong time. You had to RSVP, you got an email response saying 7 o'clock with the location and the time, but our district calendar said 7:30 until our CPAC meeting last week when the head of special services put in to get it changed. So it seems like the calendar is only as good as our upkeep of it. So I wonder what we could do to help people, I don't know, a little asterisk on the bottom of the form they fill out to get on the thing. If you cancel it, feel free to let us know and we'll remove it. I don't know. Yeah, it really is up to them to let us know.
I mean,
But
especially
it's-
for an outside organization.
Well, yes, but as a liaison to our school events, I have shown up at them based on the district calendar, and they're
Yeah.
not going on. And it's a lot of time, that we all give to show up and walk out of family events and everything, and then there's nothing going on, is very disheartening.
Go ahead.
Oh, did you? I was to say, and I didn't help that when I sent out the minutes, as Barb noticed, and she's like, you didn't mean this Monday, right? You meant next Monday. I'm like, yeah, I was confused because normally our committee meeting falls right before our board meetings.
I thought it was last week, too.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
You have a liaison? You have a
Yeah,
review
just,
liaison?
real quick, I actually couldn't make the Riverview liaison, or PTA meeting, but from a township, council liaison, the township, budget was approved by the council, similar to us. They have a small decrease for the average homeowner. So, 2 out of 3 of the major, contributors to property taxes have a small decrease.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
I was at the Valley View PTA meeting last week. We discussed the library renovation here, obviously the Chromebook initiative affecting them, the reduced and free lunches program. They're actually under budget with their piece of the free and reduced lunch program. Just a few announcements. They are running their 50-50 on May 20th. The 8th grade is sponsoring a color run on April 22nd. Apparently the first one they did was very successful. the PTA was able to increase its donations for field trips to $20,000 this year from $15,000. They had a very good year. Their lunch program's doing particularly well, apparently. Some of the positions are aging out. They're looking for positions for PTA president, secretary, and vice president positions.
So all of the positions.
All of the positions, basically. So if any of you have spare time.
Yeah, when you come off the board, you don't have spare time.
So, that's it for Valley View. I was also, and I think some of you attended the Riverview first grade and second grade folk dancing show, which was sponsored by the Foundation of Denville, funded by the Foundation of Denville. It's a tremendous program. Kids did an amazing job just for a couple of weeks of working with the artists in residence. I think it was the Morris Arts
It was.
program, right?
It was great,
It was a
yeah.
really great program.
Yeah, it was
The
nice.
kids did.
Far more fun than I would have expected.
Yeah, they did a
Yeah.
tremendous. It was really tremendous.
I thought it was great. I love that kind of enrichment type activity funded by the foundation. It's something we probably wouldn't fund ourselves, and it's not a requirement, but it's a nice enrichment and enriching activity for the kids, and I thought it was great use of their funds.
And one of our teachers, Mrs. Jameson, right? She was the one who kind of brought that to the foundation and kind of
Yes.
ran with that. So it was a really great program. So, and we had the Riverview Tricky Trail this weekend, and I am told that they raised $18,000 from that event, which is apparently a record or very close to it. So it was very successful.
And then Mr. Newell was gonna
Oh.
I had nothing to do with it. It was a training trip.
But you didn't win the Disney trip. I got that one.
You can't make it.
Fair enough. That's all I have. Anyone else? Okay. If not, we'll move to, at 8:38, I'll open up for public comments again. Any issues remain to the district? Anything at all?
I have very little time left.
This is the entertainment he gets. Seeing none, I will,
The under might be it.
I'll close public session at 8:39 and open up for board comments, if there are any.
I have nothing to extend this meeting.
Anyone, any board comments? Okay. If not, we do have a need for executive session. Mr. Napoloni, would you care to move us into executive?
Sure, I move that we convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meeting Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss
Personnel and legal.
personnel and legal issues. And this session will be made available to the public, and the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yay.
All against? Okay, we're in executive session at 8:30. God bless you, at 8:40. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Second? All in favor? Against? Okay, we are adjourned at 9:29.